It's around Connacht tonight, but dry elsewhere. Lowest temperatures of 8 to 11 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The Newsround on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, for an effortless finish to your day. New Gillette Labs Razor with exfoliating bar.
This is News Talk.
Now then, welcome along. Wednesday evening here on Off the Ball. Joe Molloy with you. Quality show on the way. Brian O'Driscoll on Wednesday night. Rugby, running the rule on all things Ireland, New Zealand ahead of test number 3 on Saturday. The Open at St Andrews with Tiger Woods in tow has a certain iconic feel already. Been something of a festival of a build-up, although very pointedly without Greg Norman and Phil Mickelson. We'll chat to Lawrence Donegan 7:30 or so. And then between 9 and 10 o'clock, myself and Mick McCarthy and Arthur O'Dea will reflect on the week that was. Pat Spillan's departure and the changing face of punditry, amongst other topics, up for discussion. You're very welcome to get involved. 53106, the text number. At Off the Ball on Twitter is where you'll get us. Mick McCarthy is here in studio. Hello.
Hey, Joe.
And Richie McCormack, good evening.
How are you, Joe? Good evening.
Excellent. I'm very well. So much going on. Brian O'Driscoll with us on Wednesday Night Rugby. I did, Richie, in the course of the conversation, ask Brian O'Driscoll what would he prefer on his CV, a test series win in New Zealand or to have been part of the first Irish team to make a World Cup semi-final. What would Richie McCormack take?
Oof. I think now we're talking semi-final. I think before he would have said perhaps the Grants are being the All Blacks in a tour series, but I think over the last 3 World Cups this is built up to such a degree that it has to happen. Whereas I don't think necessarily at the start of Brian's career that would have been the case, that this would have been the albatross that it's become. So I think it's evolved over the years, but definitely now I think we're talking about World Cup semi-finals. Although it's not to put the kibosh on a series win in New Zealand, because that would be fairly seismic regardless of the opposition or the quality of them at the moment. Because look back at the last time they were beaten on home soil, first of all, before last Saturday was 94. To go and do that is achievement in and of itself. To win a series would be just monumental, but I still think a semi-final trumps it.
That's the more popular answer. I'm taking New Zealand series all day long.
All day long. Actually winning something somewhat tangible versus, sure, anything could happen to get you to the World Cup semi-final. You know what I mean? You kind of have to win one match. Yeah. Really. It's something we haven't done. Yeah. I was thinking about our quarterfinals there, and I was thinking how it's, in some ways it's a kind of a story that isn't really told properly, in that, there's been bad luck and the injuries against Argentina in 2015. And then I started thinking about it more. 99 we didn't make it. Sorry, 2003 beaten at half-time against France. 2007 didn't make it. 2011 bottle job against Wales. Well, maybe not, but that's what it felt like at the time. 2015 hammered to Argentina. 2019 hammered to New Zealand, beaten in the first half again. We haven't actually performed in any of these World Cup quarterfinals to the best of our ability at all. So
15 was unlucky with the injuries.
There was a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
I was looking at the team today, and Paul O'Connell and Johnny Sexton out alone. Forget about anything else. Forget about the fact that Tommy Bowe went off after 13 minutes. Forget about
Peter Mahoney, Sean O'Brien. There were 5.
They were all gone. Yeah, there was an image at one point, I think, when Luke Fitzgerald got the try to level it briefly. Where they showed the coach's box, and it was all of Ireland's best players.
Yeah. Brian O'Driscoll was sort of with you though, Richie, actually. He manoeuvred it very nicely in that he said, well, as a losing semi-finalist, I might lean towards New Zealand series, but if you're saying now the chance to be in a semi-final and take my chances, that's what I want. So I think he outfoxed me in that answer slightly, but I would take New Zealand all day long. I was just reading, by the way, Warren Gatland has written a piece for The Telegraph where he's talking about the Andy Farrell that he knew, and incredibly impressed with Farrell, always was. And he writes here, this is some classic coaching chicanery, I would say here. Yeah. I got a glimpse of Faz and his innovation during an early defensive meeting. This was on the lines of 13 when he brought him on board. An early defensive meeting, he was the defence coach, when Paul Bobby Strigen, who's their strength and conditioning coach, he doesn't need to know tactics. Yeah. Paul Bobby Strigen, our strength and conditioning coach, interrupted the meeting when his phone went off. Faz gave him both barrels, and he demanded that Bobby repeat back to him the defensive structure and strategy he had outlined. Bobby's thinking here, I deal in hamstrings and calves. I'm not rush defence. I don't know. We all sat back in our seats at Gatland in embarrassment for Bobby. But then we were stunned when he repeated word for word what Faz had said. It was only later I discovered the whole thing had been set up as a ploy for Faz to get his message across to the players. If the fitness guy can remember our defence, so could they. Faz won, Lions players nil.
That's something that only works once, though, isn't
it? Yeah, it's out in the open now. What I mean? Yeah, I'm not mad about Faz as a nickname, but every other part of that story is magnificent.
Isn't it just?
Yeah.
Magnificent. Yeah. We should start the news round, which is brought to you with Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Richie McCormack, you were starting with the burning issue ahead of the weekend at Croke Park.
Yeah, the GEA say full testing of Croke Park's Hawkeye system will be carried out this week before deciding on its use in Sunday's All-Ireland hurling final. A report has found that minor hardware issues contributed to a Shane Walsh point for Galway versus Derry registering as a wide in error. The GEA say they will review their protocol into how the system would be stood down if similar problems arise in the future. And speaking to Galway Bay FM earlier this week, Galway GEA chair Paul Bellew said the Hawkeye issue almost led to a pretty severe standoff.
Look, I was just straight down to the referee's room with Pádraig Kelly, the football secretary. In fairness, I thought the referee was superb. He was like, lads, we're aware, we're looking, they communicated very well. We just made the point, we won't be back in the field until we know it's rectified. And then the officials from Croke Park were out, and I think there was just a thing about the rule. It was going to be resolved anyway, but we just had to be on top of it to make sure it did occur. It's a massive issue. I asked the question on Sunday, was it correct for the hurling? Because we had two scores on that end that were flagged over the bar, Ronan Glennon and Conor Whelan. They were flagged by the umpires as scores. They were both overturned. It's too late now, and I don't think it changes anything, but it's a massive issue, and I'm sure there's probably some difficult conversations going on in Croke Park and with Hawkeye this week, because it could have major repercussions if it's not sorted out.
Just as an aside, I don't think he's wrong at all, but isn't it wonderful that sport is such an escape that we're talking about this issue as if he was dealing there about like nuclear arms? Will I push the button or not?
Yeah.
Anyway, he's right though. It is a very serious issue within the confines of sport. I didn't realise Galway threatened
that's
we're
brilliant.
not taking the pitch.
Unbelievable. I didn't know that either. That's incredible stuff. Like Derry, right? I know, see, the second half kind of undermined this as a massive issue a little bit because Galway kind of went out and won it so easy, but it was so close at half time.
Yeah.
Conor Glass had a point a few minutes before this that looked the point, it was named the point, and Hawkeye said it was wide even though the arrow went over the bar.
If it looks like a point, quacks like a point.
But at least in the Walsh one, where the ball clearly had never deviated outside the post, the arrow did go outside. So whatever issue is going on, it went bananas. So you can't trust anything that happened in Hawkeye. And how long has it been going on? They're talking about the Galway points or non-points in the hurling semi-final the week before. We brought back watching Hawkeye like a hawk here a couple of weeks ago. I don't think you were in.
Did you?
Yeah, we had to bring it back for old school. But Hawkeye's been a mess all summer in Thurles and in Croke Park. So
remind me of the Thurles one.
So it was in the Munster final, there was just a kind of a massive delay for ages at one side, and the graphic never came up, and eventually Tony Kelly's point, a tap over free, which was clearly wide, was eventually given wide. But there was the day before in Croke Park in the Leinster final where the referee just was like waiting, and then eventually it came up on the screen that Hawkeye had malfunctioned.
Well, there will be that moment for sure on Sunday when a ball goes from an angle over the crossbar. Like, not the crossbar, over one of the uprights.
Yeah.
And it's too high for the upright to let you know either way if it's over or not. And we'll have Hawkeye, and it'll be a close run thing, and Tar and Neil. And then everyone's going to look around and say,
I know.
Are we having that or no?
I think it's been undermined in a way that we can't have it again this season. I'd be very surprised if whatever they do, they'll do the check. And in some ways, you'll have to trust it. But, if you're talking about like 40,000 people from the opposition fan base that it's going against, if they think that that's wrong, whether they're right or not,
and if the player
it's an atmosphere in Croke Park.
If the player who hits it is adamant, as soon as the player knows and they decide to rouse the troops,
there is a precedent set here by that point being added to Galway score, even though it was after, like, Galway scored again after that from the kick out.
Yeah.
Now, there's no suggestion that the kick out would be any different. It's not like they're taken from different places or anything like that, but the game had moved on.
Yeah,
you know, it is like they just
Colin
added
Boyle
that point.
on Monday made the observation, if this had happened in the first 5 minutes, would it have been overturned? It was almost because it was so close to half time, and it felt somehow within like this weird instinctive statute of limitations that we can rectify it.
That's what I meant about the glass point. Like, I mean, it wasn't as definitive.
Yeah.
But if we, like, should Derry have had a point added on as well? Like, you know, we don't, like, it was just, that happened much earlier, so nobody bothered with it. Like,
I didn't realise that Galway threatened not to take the pitch. Because on Sunday, Richie, I was saying, well, the GAA, in fairness, handled that really well. I don't know if the rule book allowed them to do it, but they just almost took a common sense approach, and they didn't allow this controversy to ruin and hang over the second half, which it would have done. And I thought, well, under pretty terrible circumstances, they did the right thing. But if they use Hawkeye now at the weekend and there's controversy and it gets messy, I don't know. I think maybe safest thing is not to use it.
I want to know who the crack team are that are testing this. I want to know who's been deployed to boot balls up towards the goalposts over the next few days at Croke Park to sort this thing out, because that's clearly going to be the way forward. I don't know, just even judging by what Paul Bellew said there, I think the nuclear option was to pull the team off the pitch, but he mentioned so many times that the ref and the officiating team were excellent in how they handled it, and clearly were following a guide which was sent down from on high. And they knew what they were doing in case of a failure of Hawkeye to actually provide the right score. Will this happen again? I doubt it. If they're testing it properly, you'd have to have faith in it, and I think most people will have faith in it. And I don't think we're going to be in a situation it's great to throw out all these hypotheticals, but I don't think we're going to be seeing that massively high ball going 20 metres above the post. That is a question mark, or
happens in most
even
hurling
people
games,
question Hawkeye.
That happens in most games, I think.
Most hurling games anyway, when the ball is hit so hard and high. But like I know what you mean. It probably won't be anything that contentious, but I think it'll be made contentious by this situation.
Yeah.
And Hawkeye is usually called on at some point.
Oh yeah.
Has
Hawkeye had a mistake like this in the recent history elsewhere? Like, have Wimbledon had issues, or cricket?
Not that I've known. The mistakes usually only arise in Wimbledon in terms of people not using it properly. So there's been countless times I was watching the past fortnight whereby people should have challenged calls and didn't. Yeah. But when it's used, it's usually used right, and there hasn't been. Not that I can remember. Like, it's such a intricate system. You only have to look at how fine the margins are that they can get down to, especially at Wimbledon. I think that's probably what people need a little bit more, is a little bit more definition in the replays that they're shown, because at Wimbledon you can get down to the blade of grass that it did or didn't touch, whereas it seems a bit old school, the version that they're using to relay at least the information that they have on hand, both at Croke Park and at Semple.
If it was just an issue last Saturday and they didn't use it on Sunday, you'd say, right, I can understand that they'd fix things. But the fact, we've had issues all summer. So I think it's a big ask now to put that on. We've had plenty of All-Ireland finals that went by perfectly fine without Hawkeye. I don't know if you'd risk the controversy.
Going to be interesting. So we know the referee for the All-Ireland football final, Richie.
Yeah, Sean Hurson will referee this year's senior football decider between Kerry and Galway. It'll be the Tyrone officials' first senior inter-county final, having already refereed this year's club final clash of Kilcoo and Kilmacud Crokes. Hurson hasn't refereed Kerry so far this year, but he has already shown red cards to Galway's Paul Conroy in their league win over Derry back in March.
Euros this evening?
Yeah, Sweden have moved to the top of Group C for the time being at Women's Euro 2022. They had a 2-1 win over Switzerland this evening at Bramall Lane. Everton's Hannah Bennison scored the winner 11 minutes from time. The Swedes also had a potential third ruled out for offside by VAR, and there's an 8 p.m. start in Lee where the Netherlands play Portugal.
We'll keep you updated on that game across the course of the evening. Now, in not terribly surprising news.
Yeah, a French Senate report has found that Liverpool fans were unfairly blamed for the chaos that came before May's Champions League final. Thousands of fans were locked outside of the Stade de France, while many were tear-gassed by police. Interior Minister Gérald Darmanin had blamed Liverpool fans in the immediate aftermath, but the Senate reported that they were blamed to divert attention away from organisational failures. And this evening, Liverpool CEO Billy Hogan said that the French government should apologise.
I mean, I say the Senate doing that report just sat down for their deliberations and said, this isn't our toughest gig.
I thought we had this a couple of weeks ago. It must have been someone else that exonerated the most easily exonerated people. You know, I said at that time, like, you know, it's good that we're getting these apologies and exonerations in a more timely manner than we have in the past. But still, like, you know, I don't know if we're going to lose sleep over what the French Interior Minister said, but like, God almighty, like a black mark on his name, like, you know, and everybody involved on the night, like, it was so, I've never seen such a sleazy cover up in a way, like, you know what I mean? It was obviously easily exposed, which was great, but think about, like, you know, just like, oh, we completely messed this up, let's blame football fans, English football fans, Liverpool fans, you know? Perfect.
Rich, young Irish player on the move.
Yeah, Dawson Devoy has gone to MK Dons, the League One side, conducting their second raid of the summer on young League of Ireland talent. They've signed Devoy for an undisclosed fee. The Republic of Ireland under-21 midfielder has penned a long-term contract at Stadium MK, where he will be a teammate of former St. Pat's winger Darragh Burns.
Michael and Kerry wants a semi-final over winning this series. He said, and no one talks about losing Test series bar the Lions, but we're the only Tier 1 nation never to make a World Cup semi-final.
Tell you who talk about losing Test series. New Zealand. Ian Foster won't make the World Cup if they lose on Saturday.
Yeah.
That's how big a deal it is to beat New Zealand. They haven't lost a Test series in New Zealand since 1994. It would be historic. It's something that England haven't done in professional era. It's something that France haven't done in the professional era. It's something that Wales haven't done in the professional era. And obviously Scotland haven't ever beaten New Zealand.
It will be quite something if Ireland win. And again, we're probably veering too close into talking about this as if, you know, we have control over this situation as opposed to New Zealand. And that prompts the end for Ian Foster and Scott Robertson or Joe Schmidt take over, and then New Zealand are reborn and unleashed against Ireland in the World Cup quarter-final. There will be a delicious irony to that. But like all this strategizing and trying to predict the future, it's just a waste of time. Like we could have given Joey Carberry all of these 3 games, or Kieran Frawley all of these 3 games, and prep and say, well, we've done everything right and we've prepped their way, you know, the textbook preparation, and then Carberry or Frawley gets injured the week before the World Cup anyway. Yeah. There's a degree of like deal with what's in front of you. Yes, you want to strategize as much as you can and you want to prepare players as much as you can, but I think the reality is, like, Frawley hasn't played a single game of 10 for Leinster all of last season. That's the week-to-week issue is the burning issue. Joey Carberry needs to get a really healthy, good season under his belt at Munster. Andy Farrell's got about 9 games to play with.
Yeah.
What can he do?
There's other ways you can build a team. There's been a really good tour. Those Maori games have been brilliant, but it's also like been a long tour of a fairly extended squad that have been over there. There's other ways of blooding players as well, you know, and again, there's a full season plus to go before we get to the World Cup.
Anonymous texter in wondering, should the GAA extend the height of the uprights?
Okay, I think genuinely there's a wind factor that comes into that in terms of
imagine what Evan Comerford would do if he had another 20 feet to work with.
Yeah.
A wind factor. I suppose
it is a wind issue. The posts already kind of wobble around the place, which doesn't make Hawkeye's or the umpire's life that easy to deal with. The taller they are. What are you laughing?
I don't know. Sorry, child. It's just a funny image, isn't it? I'm imagining incredibly tall posts. It
makes the game a bit harder. Incredibly tall posts all the way up to the top stand, just wobbling around in the wind.
Richie, I'm sure you would have seen a bit of Dawson Devoy.
Yeah, really good signing for MK Dons. It's like this move has been in the offing really since the end of last season from a League of Ireland perspective. I think it was staved off for a while. Just to, I think, get more games inside him. He's really talented. Like you just raised the point. He's an under-21 footballer playing in the League of Ireland. I mean, there are a handful of them, and they usually are pretty good technical footballers. He's certainly one of those. And Stadium MK, as we saw from what Troy Parrott managed to do on loan there last season, second half of last season, seems like a really good place to try and build your career. It's a really good setup of a club, however plastic people might point towards it being. It's a great sign. Another loss for the League of Ireland. I mean, this is just a hemorrhage at this stage from a number of clubs, unfortunately, and it's going to be It's something that we're going to have to put up with for the next while until clubs are in a position to start offering multi-year contracts to the vast majority of their squad. Again, Bo's not making a hell of a lot of money out of this one. Apparently, from what I'm hearing, they've made more from this than what Rovers made from the Mandroiu sale to Lincoln. So at least that's something. But yeah, we're going to see an increasing drain on the league and ever more blooding of these players getting younger and younger for the time being.
Somebody says Pat Kenny had an idea during the week on the Hawkeye situation. So put a crossbar across the uprights as well, and a net behind it, and that is kind of foolproof once the ball goes under that crossbar. Obviously for hurling, where there is a wind issue, as you've discussed, with the height of the upright, so it's not going to work for shots.
So it's like two goals, a high goal and a low goal.
Yeah, in effect. So it certainly would have caught the Galway free perfectly. It's in the net. But it doesn't work for, obviously, hurling in the main, which they're the really tricky ones, the ones that are over the crossbar.
And even football, like, it's not unheard of in any way.
James McCarthy's point was high, wasn't it?
We'll go over the post, yeah. You would have to make them pretty tall, but maybe with the wind issue mightn't be as much of a factor if you had a crossbar.
To hold them steady.
We
need to get an engineer on the show this evening. Gents on Off the Ball. And that's how you start a text in to 53106. Gents on Off the Ball. Thank you, Philip. There was a major Hawkeye mess on the tennis last week in the tennis doubles match in Wimbledon. The game was stopped for 10 minutes. Video stills showed the ball was out, and even the shadow of the ball was out. Hawkeye kept giving it as in. So Wimbledon have had some trouble with Hawkeye this week as well. Thanks for the text, Philip. I had missed that. That's pretty interesting. Richie, I don't know, is this a typo of sorts? But I feel you've had this story every day for the last 2 weeks.
It feels like it, doesn't it? Yeah. But the final confirmation and pictures on the Hollywood Boulevard and all this kind of stuff mean that it's a done deal at last. Chelsea confirming the signing this evening of Raheem Sterling from Manchester City. He has signed a 5-year deal at Stamford Bridge and is set to cost €56 million. Meanwhile, Napoli defender Kalidou Koulibaly will have a medical in Los Angeles tomorrow before completing a $40 million move to Chelsea. And not only that, Chelsea are also in talks, we learned this evening, with Paris Saint-Germain for their French international defender Presnel Kimpembe. Chelsea have lots of money.
Very good business. Koulibaly for 40 million. Very good business.
31 now, Koulibaly. Like, it feels like this is the transfer that's been waiting to happen for 10 years.
Yeah.
Every single summer, it's like, who's Koulibaly going to? And yeah, Jesus, like, that's a centre half who could be top of his game for another 4 or 5 years. Look at Thiago Silva at the moment. Like,
yeah. Rafinha.
Yeah, Barcelona have agreed to sign Rafinha from Leeds. The Catalan Giants are going to pay €55 million for the 25-year-old, who'd also been a target for both Chelsea and Arsenal. Rafinha, though, still needs to pass a medical before completing his move to the Camp Nou.
Big loss for Leeds. Shane Long on the move as well.
Yeah, he has rejoined Reading. The 35-year-old was a free agent following his release by Southampton last month. Long originally joined Reading from Cork City back in 2005. He scored 54 times in 203 games for the Royals during that first spell. Meanwhile, Newcastle defender Kieran Clark has joined Sheffield United on loan for the season.
Hard to think of Shane Long at 35. Still has that boyish good looks, doesn't he?
Yeah. A Lille reunion of sorts at the Majeski this year with Shane Long and Jeff Hendrick. Joined yesterday on loan, so... They'll be one to watch this year.
A hell of a career, Shane Long.
Unbelievable,
maligned, I think, for his finishing, but I mean, an amazing athlete and has had some big moments for sure. So 35 and still going in English football. John Maughan, though, Richie.
Yeah, Offaly are in need of a new senior football manager after John Maughan brought his 4-year reign to an end today. The faithful made this year's Tailteann Cup semi-finals, but that followed relegation to Division 3 and a Leinster Championship defeat to Wexford. The short sellers of Birr are believed to be in mourning this evening.
There aren't many who've been on the go for 30 plus years like Maughan.
No, absolutely not. And still, obviously, did a great job there with Offaly. Is John Maughan a contender for the Mayo job?
I don't think so.
Not at all?
No.
Okay.
Don't think so. Somebody was asking me would Kevin...
They have spread the net far and wide.
Are they?
They've put out literally an advertisement for the job on yesterday was Tuesday, on Monday. So there was an email put out, and I think this was put out to the wider world. So they're spreading the net as far as they possibly can to get candidates in for this thing. It's not necessarily a
current intercounty or former intercounty, and I suppose now since today manager, who's from there and has the experience and has done a great job in the past. I
just think they've gone back to him twice, a third time. Somebody was asking me, would Kevin McStay go for it?
Yeah.
I don't think so. he was obviously badly burned a couple of years ago and took it, very much to heart and was upset by how the process was handled. I did a feature interview with him last summer, and he said pretty much in that, definitely not.
A line was drawn.
I think he said quite recently as well, he won't bother again. Yeah.
Right. But then again, there's nothing like Mikhail gets on the phone to him. This really is our last shot. What do you think? The reality of an opportunity might change his mind somewhat. But I don't know. I don't have a sense of who the bright coaching talent within the county is.
You also just want to know, is there a full rebuild? Do we need a new James Horan to come up and sort of start again? I don't know if we'll see Kevin McLaughlin again. Aidan O'Shea is 32 now. Lee Keegan will be 33 by the time the next season comes around. These guys could have another year in them, absolutely. There's no reason to say they can't give it another go, but are they going to get any better? And they've already lost so many players. It's is it a start again thing for Mayo?
Probably is, although somebody who really knows the scene there told me that the quality of player coming through in Mayo is off the charts.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
They've been raised on, Horan's really had this decade, and Rochford's played his part, of course, but they've had this decade of things being done right, and that's extended beyond just the first team. So apparently if your timing is good, you're about to inherit a very, very healthy bunch. Yeah, so it mightn't be the worst time for somebody to swoop in there. So if we could skip on, Richie, to Martin Slumbers.
Yeah, the CEO of the RNA has ruled out banning Live Golf signees from the Open Championship. Players on the Saudi-funded tour are allowed to compete at St Andrews this week, much as they were at last month's US Open. However, Martin Slumbers says players will have to earn the right to play at future Opens, and Live Golf events do not currently carry ranking points.
I believe the model we've seen at Centurion and Pumpkin Ridge is not in the best long-term interests of the sport as a whole and is entirely driven by money. We believe it undermines the merit-based culture and the spirit of open competition that makes golf so special. Looking ahead to the Open next year, we have been asked quite frequently about banning players. Let me be very clear. That's not on our agenda. But what is on our agenda is that we will review our exemptions and qualifications criteria for the Open. And whilst we do that every year, we absolutely reserve the right to make changes as our Open Championships Committee deems appropriate.
I mean, the RNA have taken something of a symbolic stand in that at their champions dinner on Tuesday, the only former champion not invited was Greg Norman, which was, quite the move. And then Phil Mickelson declined the invitation, and this could well be Jack Nicklaus's last champions dinner at St Andrews. So it's had the feel of a very significant one. So
and they've this evening as well, John, I'm saying that they've given the Live Golf signees pretty bogey tee times for the first couple of rounds there as well, which is a bit of a small time move, but it looks like it's done on purpose, judging by the people who have been lumbered with certain tee times.
Well, I was wondering, was the Greg Norman move also a small time move? Yeah, it's a touch petty.
Small time, yeah. I mean, he's earned his place at that and dinner that has nothing to do with what he's currently doing. There's nobody else excluded, but same time,
they didn't trust him. They didn't trust him not to turn up in a Live Golf t-shirt and hat and do interviews in front of the clubhouse night, noon and morning.
Waving a Saudi flag.
Waving a Saudi flag, potentially. And just ruining the whole week, which was kind of, if you're into your golf, it was kind of a magical week. There was a group with them in that 4-hole Champions tournament with Lee Trevino, Tiger Woods, Rory McIlroy and Georgia Hall setting off down the first fairway. It was kind of amazing. So you don't really want, Norman said this, what's your response to that, Tiger, etc. for the week. So
takes over the week a little bit then, doesn't it? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. I don't know. The whole thing is just never ending though, isn't it? We're just it's the Open, we had it with the US Open, it's just constant every week, live. Jeez, they've infiltrated it.
They sure have. Yeah. They sure have. We are pretty much done, fellas. Richie, thank you.
Listen.
Mick McCarthy, thank you. Actually, sorry, bunch of texts just to finish on, and we'll come back to these at some stage in the next while. I would say more people are taking a semi-final over a winning series in New Zealand. For instance, Michael and Kerry, World Cup semi all day long. It's the thing that's always thrown at Irish rugby every 4 years. It is the albatross around their necks. TC says, lads, are you really trying to make a contest out of winning 2 friendlies?
Stop reading it.
In a series.
Stop reading it.
It's not a friendly, come on. 2 friendlies in a series against achieving something in an actual World Cup. Bizarre stuff. See, you're diminishing
not accepting the
test
premise
matches
of
are
that
friendly,
text.
and you're
Joe.
also saying achieving something at a World Cup, like making a semi-final.
Yeah.
Who made the semi-finals at the last World Cup? Top of your head, go.
Wales, South Africa, England and New Zealand.
All right, okay.
Don't get me on a quiz here, Joe. I can't help myself.
I needed you to help the point there.
No, though. The main point, though, is that these things don't have to be bloody mutually exclusive. Winning a test series can only help us in the World Cup. And it doesn't mean we'll even get out of our group. It's not going to do us any harm.
Agreed. We will move on.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Summer Cash Machine.
Now, Oisin O'Hara became our second winner from Mayo in the last week when he answered Barry's call. We have reloaded the cash machine, and the new number you need is 12,840.